These are the assembly instructions for my candelabra. I'm going to start by assembling the 3 flames for the candles for the candelabra. I've already done one. All 3 of them go together the exact same way. These are the pieces that are required for each one. The yellow is 80-pound cardstock, and these pieces are cut out of vellum. So I have 3 flame pieces. So I have 2 pieces that have a slit coming down from the peak, and then I have one that has a slit that starts midway. I'm starting with that one. And then I'm taking the piece that has 2 slits in that peak piece. So this one only has 1 and this one has 2. I'm intertwining the one that has the slit at the bottom of this triangle with the one that has the slit at the top. And then I'm bending my shape until I get the bottom pieces to intertwine as well, like so. And then I'm taking this piece and I'm laying it flat. Then I'm taking my 3rd piece and I'm inserting it at the top the same way, and then tucking it in at the bottom as well. So next I have 2 circular pieces. They're almost the same size. I'm taking the smaller one. The smaller one goes at the bottom of my shape, and the larger one has a little hole in the center to make it easy to identify it. I'm just diagonally inserting it in the center of my shape, and then I'm lowering my round piece. At the bottom of each one of these 6 vertical panels, there's a little slot. I'm matching up all 6 of the cutouts on my round panel to all 6 of the slots on my vertical pieces, and that creates a nice flat base at the bottom of my flame piece. So next I'm going to take my other round piece, and this one goes towards the top of my shape, so I'm inserting it on the inside of my flame piece, and I'm doing the same thing with it. I'm matching up those little cutouts on my circular piece to the little slits that are on my vertical pieces. As I flip my flame piece over, it creates another horizontal panel. So next I have the panels that are going to go on the sides of my flame piece. So they each have a little hole on the bottom tab, and that's just to indicate that that's the bottom of the panel. So I'm flipping them over so that I'm looking at the underside of them. And I have my vellum pieces. So if you compare 2 of your vellum pieces, you're going to see one end is narrower than the other. So the narrow end goes downwards on the panels. So for each one of my 6 panels, I'm putting a bead of glue around the narrow frame. I'm gluing my vellum, centering it as best I can over the opening. And then I'm flipping my piece over, just making sure there's no glue on my vellum. And I'm doing the exact same thing for all 6 panels. All right, so now that my side pieces are assembled and I've let the glue dry for a minute or 2, I'm just inserting the tab that doesn't have the hole in it towards the top of my flame piece in a little slot that's on the circular piece. The tab with the small hole goes in the bottom. You may have to pull it through a little bit. And I'm just working my way around the shape, just inserting the tabs. And so for this design, there's 3 of these, and I'm going to assemble a 3rd one before moving on. I have assembled 3 different ones, one out of 65-pound cardstock, another one out of 80-pound cardstock, and this is a 3rd one that I've cut out of holographic foil cardstock. And as much as I love the look of it, the issue with this is that it is only one-sided, so the second side shows through. Although I'm going to use this, I need to be mindful of which side I'm going to put towards the front. This side shows the brown, so the underside of my cardstock, and this side shows the holographic. So next I have all these pieces for my candles, and they all have score lines. So I'm folding on the score lines. I have the right side of my cardstock upwards, and I'm folding them in a V position. So I'm doing that for all of these pieces. So next I have these pieces. So this is the base for my candle, and I'm just folding each one of these in the center line. And again, I want the right side upwards, and I'm folding them in a V or valley, and I'm doing that for all of these pieces. So next I have these narrow long pieces. I'm folding them in a V fold, and I have the right side towards me. And then I have 2 pieces that have the candle holder towards the left, and 2 pieces with the candle holder towards the right. And again, there's a score line that runs down the length. I've got my right side facing upwards, and I'm folding down on that score line, and I'm doing that for all 4 pieces. So next I have my base piece. I'm folding down on all the score lines for this piece. I'm starting with that scored octagon in the center, and then the tabs that are on the end of all 8 of those panels. So on the side of each one, there's a score line that creates a little triangle. So I'm just folding down on that little triangle to create a tab. I'm just working my way around the shape, doing that for all 8 of those little triangles. So next I'm putting glue from the score line to the edge on that triangular tab. I'm bringing the adjacent panel right to the score line of the triangular tab. And I'm doing that for all 8 triangles around the perimeter of my piece. And then I'm just folding all of those tabs downwards. So that's the little pedestal for my candelabra. So next I have the 3 pieces that I've cut out of craft board. So one of them is the full piece, and then I have the 2 pieces without the candles attached. So I'm just covering the underside of my piece in glue, and I'm gluing it down to the larger piece. And then I'm flipping my piece over, and I'm doing the same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to be decorating the bottom section of my candelabra. So I have 2 sets of pieces which are identical. One that has the candle holder towards the left, one that has the candle holder towards the right, and then I have 2 pieces that fit in between. So I'm taking the piece that has the candle holder towards the left, and I'm folding down on the second half of it. I'm putting glue all over from the score line to the edge of that half, and then I'm taking one of those long narrow pieces and I'm just gluing it right on top. I want those edges to line up perfectly. So next I'm folding that panel down. I'm putting glue from the score line to the edge all over that half, and I'm taking another one of those long narrow pieces and just gluing it right on top. And again, I want those pieces to line up as much as possible. So I'm folding 1, 2, and 3 down and putting glue all over from the score line to the edge on that top layer. And then I'm taking my piece that has the candle holder on the right hand side, and I'm just lining up the edges. And again, I want those edges to be nice and even. So that's going to be 1/2 of my candelabra. So now I'm going to assemble the other half the exact same way. Now that I've worked on the 2 halves, I'm going to work on those candle holders. So I have these pieces that look like upside down bells. I'm breaking them up into groups of 3. I'm going to do pretty much as I've been doing all along, folding the right sides together, covering 1/2 in glue, taking another piece and gluing half of it to the first piece, making sure that the edges are nice and even, and then folding it flat again, putting glue from the score line to the edge, taking a third piece and layering it on top, making sure that the edges are nice and even again. That's one of them put together. I'm going to do the same thing 3 more times. So now that I've glued all of these together, I'm going to glue them onto my 2 halves. So this is where the 3 panels join up, and I'm putting glue all over both sides. I'm carefully gluing it on the left hand side, making sure that the edges are all aligned. I'm doing that on the other side as well. So that's 1/2 done. I'm going to do that to the other half as well. So next I'm taking the 3 layers of craft board that I have glued together, putting glue from the curve of the 3 candle holders all the way down to the bottom, and then I'm taking one of my dimensional pieces and I'm just trying to glue it so that all those edges meet up, and just making sure that everything is nicely glued down. Next I'm going to flip my piece over. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So next I'm taking my flame pieces. I'm just making sure that all the shiny panels are towards me. If I rotate this, I see the back side of my cardstock. So I'm looking for that middle piece that doesn't have a cut down the center of it. And I'm putting glue on the underside of it. If your cardstock is pretty on both sides, you don't have to worry about which side. You want to put glue all along that entire rectangle at the bottom, and then just slide your piece over one of your candlestick pieces. You want that black curved part to show through. And I'm doing that with all 3 of my pieces. So next I'm going to take my candle pieces. One end has a very definite curve and the other end has a tiny little curve. You want the more pronounced curve towards the top, and it should match up with the top of your black layer. I'm putting glue on half of that piece. I'm matching it up with my black layer like so. And then I'm putting glue on that little rectangle at the bottom of my flame piece and just gluing it down to my panel. And then I'm covering that entire panel in glue. I'm taking another one of my candle pieces with the pronounced curve at the top and gluing half of it down. And then I'm putting glue on that rectangle, gluing it to my candle. And this time I'm putting glue on both sides, taking a third piece and matching it up to my base layers. Now I'm going to do that with the 2 other candles the exact same way. So once I finished decorating the front half of the candles, I flipped my piece around and I decorated the back half the exact same way. So now with all that weight, my candelabra becomes a little bit heavy. So I cut 2 pieces of clear acetate. I'm going to put a strip of double-sided tape on each end of both pieces. I'm flipping my candelabra over so that I'm looking at the back of it. So this is the underside of those pieces. I'm removing the liner from my double-sided tape, and I want to position my acetate just along the center score line of both my pieces. I've got the flap that's parallel to my craft mat, and I've just glued the end of my acetate piece. I'm going to do that on the other side as well. So I'm going at the top of the shorter candle. I'm positioning my acetate piece straight across that score line, and then I'm gluing it right against the score line on the other side. And so this gives me the stability I need. So next I'm taking the pedestal that I created earlier. I have a reinforcement piece that I'm putting on the top. It's also a little bit decorative. So I'm covering the underside of it in glue, and I'm matching up the center shape on both layers. And then I'm taking the bottom of my candelabra and I'm just kind of poking it through that center hole. It's a very tight fit, and this is going to be hard to show on camera, but it's relatively simple. So I have these pieces cut out of craft board. They have a center score line, and at the base I'm putting glue on both sides of the bottom piece. I have 8 of those little flaps. I'm inserting one of my folded pieces flush with the bottom and as far in as it'll go, and I'm just working my way around that piece, gluing in those little tabs at the bottom. So here's the bottom of it after I've glued in all of those panels, so it forms a nice little base. So next I have an octagon piece with an octagon cut out in the center. I'm putting glue on one of the tabs that's on the base of my pedestal. I'm matching up the corners of my shape to the edges of my tab, like so. I want the cut edge to follow the score line on that tab. And then I'm putting glue all over the 7 other tabs, and then just gluing the rest of that shape to the bottom of my pedestal piece. So next I have a solid octagon piece for the bottom of my chandelier. So I'm just covering the perimeter of it in glue, and I'm placing it on the bottom, matching up the edges. So this is the version of my candelabra in which I've used craft board. So next I'm assembling a second version, and instead of using 3 pieces of craft board for that central piece, I'm using 1 piece of chipboard, and I have painted the edges of it white because I'm using white cardstock to line the better part of this piece. I've already assembled the 2 main pieces that form the bottom of the candelabra, but before I glue them down, I have these white pieces that I'm going to glue on top of the parts where my candles are. I'm just going to glue these pieces down, trying to get those edges as aligned as possible. And then I'm just gluing down my 2 main pieces like I did for the other version. And then I'm assembling the candle holders exactly the same as I did for the craft board version. So next I have this extra shelf piece that I've created that goes at the bottom of my candle pieces. So I'm just folding down on all the score lines for it. And then I'm putting glue on that side tab. I'm going to glue my tab to the inside of this because my plan is to put some decorations in here that will hide that join. And then I'm putting glue on the 8 tabs in the center. I'm taking a piece that has that rectangular cutout in the center, and I'm just gluing it onto those tabs. And I have a second piece that's exactly the same, and I'm just gluing it onto the bottom, making sure to match up that cutout. And then this piece gets slipped onto each one of my candles like so. So I have to assemble the 2 others and do the exact same thing. I've completed my 3 tray pieces. I'm lowering the trays on the left and the right hand side first, and then the center one. And then I'm taking my flame piece. I'm doing as I did for the other one. I'm looking for that solid panel at the bottom, putting glue all over it, and then I'm gluing it to the top of my candle. For this one, I'm just gluing a little bit higher, only because of the thickness of my chipboard. I need that little extra space at the top. Flip my piece around and just pulling those other 2 prongs down. And I'm just doing that for all 3 flames. So my gold piece is a little bit above that chipboard piece. So I've cut patterned paper for this version for the candles, and I'm gluing in my candle pieces as I did for the first version. And so next I'm going to continue on with my pedestal piece. So the rest of the assembly of my candelabra is pretty much the same as the first one.